You know how every family has that one person everyone kind of tiptoes around? In my family, it was my little sister Claire. She wasn't dangerous or anything, quite the opposite. She was soft, quiet, the kind of person who apologized if you bumped into her, and I hated that about her. Maybe hate sounds harsh, but growing up in our house, weakness was basically an invitation to be the punchline. My parents did it, I did it. It was just what we did. At least, that's what I told myself. That night, it was freezing in our old, drafty place in upstate New York. Claire was upstairs taking her nightly shower. Same time, same routine, same cheap white bar of soap she always used. I'd been bored out of my mind, scrolling TikTok, and saw some prank video where a girl swapped her roommate's body wash with hair removal cream. People in the comments thought it was hilarious. Somewhere between the boredom and my own mean streak, I got an idea. There was a half-empty bottle of bleach under the kitchen sink from when Mom tried to deep clean the grout last spring. It wasn't like I was going to pour it on her. I figured if I rubbed a little onto her bar of soap, it would just make her skin itch. Nothing serious. In my head, it was harmless. A dumb stunt I could record for a laugh, maybe send to a couple friends. So, while she was in the shower, steam fogging the bathroom mirror, I slipped in quietly. The water was running. She didn't notice me. I grabbed her soap, rubbed it down with bleach, put it back, and slipped out like nothing happened. My phone camera was ready. A few minutes later, I heard it. The sharp gasp, the panicked shuffle behind the shower curtain. Then she stumbled out, clutching a towel, skin flushed and splotchy like a bad sunburn. I couldn't help it. I laughed. Out loud. Mom came over, cigarette in hand, saw Claire's arms, and smirked. "Guess even your skin knows you don't belong here," she said, like it was the punchline to some long-running family joke. Dad barely looked up from the recliner. "Keep it down," he muttered. "Always so dramatic." Claire stood there, dripping onto the hallway carpet, eyes wide like she'd just been hit by a truck. And me? I just kept filming, thinking this was gold. She didn't scream at me, didn't lunge, didn't even cry. She just stared, then disappeared into her room without a word. I remember feeling this weird rush, like I'd finally put her in her place. In my mind, she was never going to forget it. And I told myself, as I put my phone down, she'll remember this night forever, and so will I. For the first 2 days after the prank, I expected Claire to do what she always did. Sulk, cry in her room, maybe avoid me for a bit, then eventually act like nothing happened. That was her pattern. That's why messing with her was so easy. But this time, nothing. She went about her business like I wasn't there. No glares, no muttered insults under her breath, no slamming doors. I even dropped a snide comment when she walked past me in the kitchen, something about, "Hope you found soap you're not allergic to." She didn't flinch, just looked at me with this blank stare, not angry, not sad, just empty. And for some reason, that bothered me more than if she'd screamed at me. Mom noticed it too. Normally, Claire's little outbursts were the main entertainment in our house. Mom thrived on it, poking at her until she cried, then acting like Claire was the problem. But now, there was nothing to poke at. No tears, no reaction, just silence. After a few days, Mom started getting snappy about random things. The trash not being taken out, the TV remote being misplaced, as if the lack of drama was making her restless. One night, I caught Mom muttering in the kitchen to Dad. "She's acting weird, like she's planning something." Dad just shrugged. Probably just sulking. But even he sounded unsure. I told myself it was fine. I was still in control here. I'd humiliated her in front of the whole house, and she was probably too embarrassed to bite back. Still, I couldn't shake this small, nagging thought. What if that blank stare wasn't defeat? What if it was something else? A few mornings later, I rolled out of bed groggy and headed straight for the bathroom. I had a video call scheduled for later that day with some friends from college, so I figured I'd do my usual skincare routine. Cleanse, serum, moisturizer, the whole thing. But when I looked in the mirror, I froze. My face looked off. Puffy around the eyes, blotchy across my cheeks, and my hair, which I'd washed and styled the night before, was a tangled mess, like I'd slept in a wind tunnel. At first, I thought maybe I was just overtired. But then I caught a whiff of something weird when I opened my moisturizer. It didn't smell like the usual light citrus scent, more like old milk. I checked the label, and it was my brand, but the texture was wrong too. I rinsed my face, figuring maybe I'd had an allergic reaction, but the redness didn't go away. By mid-morning, I was hyper-aware of every imperfection. My skin felt tight, itchy in places. I canceled the video call. The next day, it happened again. Different product this time. My toner smelled faintly like vinegar. A couple days later, my hair conditioner left my hair greasy instead of smooth. By the end of the week, it wasn't just one or two items. Every single expensive product I owned, the ones I kept in my bathroom drawer, my bedroom vanity, all had something off about them. The scents were wrong. The textures were weird. Some had colors that definitely weren't there before. I started stressing every time I reached for a bottle. Was it safe? Was I about to make things worse? For someone who prided herself on always looking polished, hair perfect, skin clear, it was like my safety net had been yanked away overnight. I didn't want to go out. I avoided running into neighbors. I skipped hanging out with friends. I'd catch myself glancing in the mirror 10 times a day, hoping the swelling would go down, only to feel more convinced that everyone could see something was wrong. That's when I remembered her face the night I pranked her. That same stillness, the blank stare. And for the first time, I wondered if maybe I wasn't the one holding the upper hand anymore. If there's one thing my mom took seriously, it was her image, especially with the neighbors. We lived in a quiet cul-de-sac in a mid-sized suburb, the kind of place where everyone's lawn was mowed on the same schedule, and HOA complaints were practically a sport. Mom loved being the friendly but classy one, always hosting coffee mornings, making sure the front porch was spotless, greeting people with her perfect smile. That's why it caught my attention when she started complaining about a smell in the house. At first, it was just little comments. "I swear something's rotting in here," she'd mutter while lighting a candle in the kitchen. Or she'd spray Febreze in the living room before anyone came over. But after a week, it got worse. She'd scrub the counters, run the garbage disposal twice, mop the floors, and still pace around sniffing the air like a bloodhound. The breaking point came on a Thursday morning when her two closest friends from the neighborhood, Donna and Marcy, came over for their usual coffee. I was upstairs, but I could hear it. The polite hellos, the sound of mugs clinking, and then the pause. "Oh, do you smell that?" one of them whispered, not quietly enough. The conversation turned awkward. They stayed maybe 15 minutes before making an excuse to leave early. After they were gone, Mom slammed the front door harder than necessary and went straight into the kitchen, muttering under her breath. The next week, nobody came by at all. No coffee mornings, no casual drop-ins, just quiet. And that's when I realized this wasn't just about me and Claire anymore. Whatever she was doing, if it was her, it was starting to hit the whole family. Mom's perfect little social circle was crumbling, and she was taking it personally. The house felt different now. Not just tense, but smaller. like all the air had been sucked out, and I started wondering how far Claire was willing to take this. If Mom's kingdom was her spotless house and perfect reputation, Dad's was the living room recliner. Every night after work, he'd grab a cold beer from the fridge, sink into that chair, and zone out in front of the TV until bedtime. That was his routine. Didn't matter if the roof was leaking or the kitchen was on fire. As long as he had his beer, his remote, and ESPN, life was fine. So when his little ritual started falling apart, I noticed. First, it was the beer. He came home one night, cracked open a can, and immediately spat it back into the sink. "Tastes like it's gone bad," he grumbled. I figured it was just one bad pack, but it kept happening. Sour, flat, even warm sometimes, like the fridge wasn't working right. Then the TV started acting up. He'd settle in for a game, only to find the channel mysteriously changed to static, or the volume dropping so low he couldn't hear the commentary. Sometimes the remote would just disappear for hours, then show up in places like the pantry or the laundry room. At first, Dad blamed me. Then, he blamed Mom. Eventually, he just started blaming everyone. And when Dad was in a bad mood, it spread fast. He'd bark at Mom for moving his stuff, snap at me for touching the fridge, and stomp around the house muttering about how no one respected his space. The tension got thick. Dinner was mostly silence, except for the occasional passive-aggressive jab. And it wasn't just him. Mom was still bitter about the smell situation. I was dealing with my own mirror problems. And now, we were all side-eyeing each other like suspects in some low-budget mystery show. For the first time, it felt like the three of us, the people who used to feed off each other's annoyance at Claire, were too busy fighting our own battles to even pay attention to her. And I had a sinking feeling that was exactly what she wanted. By the end of the month, our house didn't feel like a home anymore. We still technically lived together, but it was more like three strangers sharing the same square footage, passing each other in the hallway without a word. Meals were silent. The TV stayed off most nights because Dad was too irritated to deal with it. Mom spent her time scrubbing already clean counters, muttering under her breath. And me? I kept my door locked more than I ever had before. It wasn't just the tension, it was the watching. Every time I walked into the kitchen, Mom would glance up like I might be hiding something. Dad would give me this side-eye if I lingered near the fridge too long, and I caught myself doing the exact same thing to them. I started losing sleep. I'd lie in bed, staring at the ceiling, waiting for something. I didn't even know what. Some nights, I'd hear footsteps in the hallway at 2 a.m., slow and deliberate. Other times, the faint scrape of a chair leg against the kitchen tile. Once, I swore I heard a door open downstairs, then close again. But when I crept down to check, nothing was out of place. Maybe it was the creaks of an old house. Maybe it was my nerves. But the silence from Claire made it worse. She didn't yell. She didn't accuse. She didn't even look smug. She just moved through the house like a shadow, never making enough noise to catch, but enough for me to notice. It was like she'd found a way to make her presence feel bigger by saying nothing at all. And I hated that it was working. By week 5, I couldn't recognize the person in the mirror anymore. My hair, once thick and shiny, was shedding so much I'd find strands on my pillow, in my hoodie, even floating in my coffee mug if I wasn't paying attention. My skin had gone dull, with this tired gray tone that no amount of concealer could fix. I looked older. I figured the only way to stop it was to start fresh. So I drove 20 minutes to a store across town, bought a new set of skincare and hair products, and hid them in a shoebox under my bed. No one could possibly find them there. The next morning, I pulled them out to use for the first time. The moisturizer smelled faintly like sour cream. The shampoo had a weird, cloudy color that wasn't there when I bought it. My stomach dropped. I started replaying everything in my head. Had I accidentally mixed them up? Was I remembering the wrong scent? The more I thought about it, the less sure I became. Maybe I was the one messing up. Maybe I'd been so paranoid that I was seeing things that weren't there. That's when it hit me. I couldn't tell anymore what was real and what was her. Was she actually touching my stuff every night? Or had she done just enough at the start that my own brain was now doing the rest of the work for her? I hated how possible that sounded. And I hated even more that I was starting to feel like I was losing control over my own mind. Dinner that night was the usual awkward silence. The kind where you can hear the silverware scraping the plates, and every swallow of water feels too loud. Mom had made some overcooked chicken. Dad was poking at his food like it had personally offended him, and Claire was sitting there, calm as ever, eating slowly. I couldn't take it anymore. The hair loss, the ruined products, the weird smells, the late-night noises. It had all been building up like pressure in a sealed jar. I slammed my fork down, the sound echoing off the walls, and stood up. "You're doing this!" I snapped, pointing straight at her. "You're messing with my stuff! You're screwing up the house! You're trying to ruin everything!" Mom looked up sharply, trying to play it cool, but I saw her hand tighten around her glass. Dad froze mid-bite, eyes flicking between us. Neither of them said a word. Claire just set her fork down gently, dabbed her mouth with a napkin, and leaned back in her chair. She didn't look scared. She didn't look guilty. She looked amused. Her voice was calm, almost casual. "Or maybe," she said, "this house is just starting to treat you the way you treated me." The words landed like a stone in the middle of the table. No one moved. No one breathed. Mom's jaw tightened. Dad went back to staring at his plate, like if he didn't acknowledge it, it wouldn't be real. But for me, the sentence kept replaying in my head, over and over, long after dinner ended. Because for the first time, I wasn't sure if I was still the one in control, or if I'd already lost. It happened on a Sunday afternoon. Mom was in the kitchen pretending to read a magazine. Dad was in his recliner, but not watching TV, just staring at the blank screen. And I was scrolling aimlessly on my phone at the dining table. The air in the house had been heavy for weeks, like we were all just waiting for the next thing to break. Claire walked in quietly, carrying something in her hand. She didn't look at anyone at first. She just pulled out a chair, sat down, and set it on the table. I froze. It was a small, cloudy white bar of soap, sealed in clear plastic. I didn't need to ask. I knew exactly what it was. The same bar I'd rubbed bleach into weeks ago. "I kept it," she said, her voice calm but sharp enough to cut through the room. "To remind myself of who you are." She glanced at me, then at Mom, then back to me. "But I don't need it anymore, because now you'll remind yourself." No one spoke. Mom's eyes dropped to the floor. Dad shifted uncomfortably in his chair. I felt the air in my lungs get tight, like the walls were pressing in. It wasn't just about the soap. It was the fact she'd been holding on to it all this time, waiting for the exact right moment to put it in front of me. From that moment on, every sound in the house, the creak of the floorboards, the hum of the fridge, the click of a door latch, made me jump. Because now, I knew she didn't have to touch a thing to make me feel trapped. Claire left on a Thursday. No big announcement, no fight. Just walked out the front door with a backpack slung over one shoulder and didn't look back. For a minute, I thought I'd feel relieved. Instead, the house felt wrong, colder, like the walls were holding their breath. Weeks passed, but nothing went back to normal. My hair never fully grew back. My skin still looked tired and uneven no matter what I tried. Mom stopped inviting her coffee group over, too afraid of another smell incident. Dad barely touched the TV anymore. It just sat there, dark and silent, collecting dust. And me? Every night, I'd lie in bed listening to the house settle and flinch at every creak and groan. I told myself it was just an old house, but I didn't believe it. One night, I stood in the bathroom under the harsh overhead light, staring at my reflection. The person looking back didn't feel like me. Hollow cheeks, flat eyes. Someone who couldn't remember the last time they'd laughed without checking over their shoulder first. That's when I heard it. The faint sound of the front door easing open. I spun around, heart pounding, and rushed to the living room. No one was there. The only thing in the middle of the carpet was a small, cloudy white bar of soap wrapped in clear plastic. Maybe you clicked out of curiosity, or maybe, without realizing it, you were looking for a quiet place where words arrive slowly and the pauses are part of the conversation. I wrote this story gently, like stitching together memories, hurts, and small discoveries, hoping that somewhere in it you might see a bit of yourself. If that happens, even for a moment, stay, listen for as long as you want, and if you feel like it, leave a little sign you were here. It doesn't have to be much. Sometimes a simple "I'm here" in the comments, a quiet share with someone who might need it, or just hitting that subscribe button so we can meet again, is enough to mean everything. Terminal B always smells like burnt coffee and shoe rubber. The PA chimes, the carry-ons click, and people stand a little too close because everyone is trying to be somewhere else. Mom had both our passports in a Navy travel wallet she bought at Target, one of those organizer things with pen loops and a zip pocket. She likes being the responsible one. She likes handing people what they need. She turned to me first. "Put this in your inner pocket and don't keep it in your tote," she said, sliding my passport and boarding pass into my palm. "If you get flustered at security, just breathe, look for TSA pre-check, and stay with your group." Her voice wasn't loud. Mom isn't a yeller in public, but she was precise, and the way she squared her shoulders told everyone around us I was the main event. It felt good, like being the person the day was about. I wasn't dressed like an influencer. Black sweater, clean sneakers, hair in a claw clip. But I'd be lying if I said the moment didn't feel like a coronation. The Paris Fellowship had sent a welcome packet with glossy photos of studios and galleries. My name was on that letterhead. I'd done the essays, the portfolio, the interviews. I'd earned it. And sure, there'd been a lot of family coordination to make it work. Mom's word. But nothing about that felt wrong. Families help the person with the best shot. That's just efficient. Maddie stood half a step behind us, hands tucked under the strap of her canvas backpack. She had on that thrifted green jacket she loves, the one with the stubborn zipper. She was quiet. Maddie's always been quiet in crowds, but there was a tightness to it today. I noticed it, and then, maybe on purpose, I didn't notice it. "We'll sort out your plans when I get back," Mom said to her without turning fully. It was the kind of line you toss out when you're already moving on to the next task. "Let's not complicate this morning." Maddie's mouth ticked at one corner. "It was my itinerary," she said, calm in that unsettling way some people smile when they're not smiling. Then she looked past us at the departures board. "But sure, let's not complicate it." I tucked the passport into my inside pocket, exactly like Mom told me. The nylon of my blazer rasped against the cover. I could feel the corners of the booklet when I pressed my elbow to my ribs. Weight and proof. You don't realize how much a tiny booklet can center you until it's yours, and it means the world will open if you walk the right direction. Group 2 will board early, Mom said, scanning the email on her phone like she had a stake in the airline's on-time performance. Gate B12, 10 minutes. A couple at the next stanchion were arguing about whether to check a bag. A baby somewhere was doing that pre-cry whimper. The mundane soundtrack of other people's lives made ours feel sharper, like someone had turned up our volume and turned theirs down. I didn't gloat. I just stood a little taller. If you've ever worked for something and the door finally clicks open, you know that instinct, to take up half an inch more space. Maddie shifted her backpack and said nothing. That's her tell. She'll talk around you when she's okay. She goes quiet when she's thinking. Back in high school, when a teacher made a snide comment about her not aiming higher, Maddie didn't argue. She went home and taught herself a whole unit's worth of chem labs for fun. She's like that. Still water with an undertow. I know this about her. I just didn't factor it in today. Remember to text when you land, Mom said, softening the way she does when she's 2 breaths from crying. And don't be stubborn about Google Maps. If you get turned around, step inside a store and ask for help. Don't wander. I'll be fine, I said, laughing because I was 26, not 12. I'm not going to hitchhike to Versailles. She squeezed my forearm. I know. A beat. I'm proud of you. That sentence warmed my whole chest. I'd told myself 100 times the fellowship was about craft and network and a resume line that opens doors. But if I'm honest, a piece of it was about this exact moment. My mother's face, softer than it's been in years, saying I had been right to want something big and to go get it.